Good grief, Monday feels like a long time ago now, doesn't it? We were talking on Monday about the fact that Games Workshop had actually done something proactive, well no, I guess reactive, about the whole scalping thing. So The End of the Death Volume 3, it went up for pre-order, 2,500 copies worldwide, and 20% of it ended up on eBay. Obviously, not great. Extremely not great, in fact. But Games Workshop did do something about it. They cancelled a ton of orders and then put the stock back up for sale a second time. And that was yesterday. And you'll be happy to know that nothing really changed. It looks like exactly the same thing has happened again. Now, when we talked about this before, I did think to myself, and I can't remember whether we talked about it in the video itself or not, but I did think to myself, does this mean that Games Workshop has come up with a way to prevent this from happening a second time? Because let's be honest, simply running the same sale twice on the same item twice and hoping that the second time things will go better than the first time without doing anything differently, that would of course be kind of mad, kind of silly, and not really worth the effort. Because, you know, how are you going to expect things to turn out differently unless you do something to actively change the outcome? Now, a big thing with the first pre-order was the queue. We're not going to do a whole thing about the queue, despite what I said I'd do to Rob from The Honest Wargamer, but no, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to do a video on the history of queuing, but we will briefly say that the queue didn't work all that well first time round, and it seemed to work even worse second time round, which is, I guess, something that is a little different and also slightly worse, which is not really what you want on a second attempt at running a pre-order for an extremely limited product. Nothing really went how it was supposed to go for a second time, which makes me wonder whether Games Workshop actually changed anything on the back end at all to deal with the issues that they had identified from the first time. I couldn't say. I have my suspicions, but it would be unfair to just assume that nothing really changed. So I'm not going to assume that. I'm going to assume that things were tried and didn't work out. But it's left us kind of with the same situation all over again, where people who actually want the product are waiting in the queue that doesn't really work, hoping to get their hands on this thing, whilst people who scalp, like an actual organised group of scalpers using bots, bypass all of that and snatch up all the stock. And it's not just The End of the Death Volume 3, by the way. This same group has also talked about the Deathwing box as well, and, you know, lower resale value, but it's still worth it because the Warhammer community just loves buying stuff, which is true. Maybe we didn't need to hear it that bluntly, but it is true. So we're kind of in a position now where I'm not really sure how Games Workshop is going to tackle this going forward. Like, they can't just do the same thing again. Just cancelling it all again and running a third sale is going to be, I mean, it would be ridiculous. It would look kind of incompetent, but at the same time, this has become such a big problem and has just gotten so much backlash from the community that for them to do nothing kind of feels like that would be the wrong move too. I think if just saying, we don't know how to combat this, they can't do that because that makes it look like they are losing a war against scalping. If they just do the same thing again, there's nothing to say that the same thing won't happen for a third time. That will just kind of look like they're scrambling to try to fix something that they can't actually fix, so that doesn't look great either. Maybe do more copies. Maybe that's the only way forward. Maybe that's the only way forward from this point on. Because it doesn't seem like this is going to get better. Unless scalpers magically decide that ripping people off is actually not something they want to do after all, and they want to find some sort of, you know, ethical way to make money, then, you know, that seems unlikely. Otherwise, they wouldn't have started doing it in the first place. There are plenty of people, unfortunately. Well, I say unfortunately. Let me try and place that unfortunately in the right place. There are plenty of people who have enough expendable income, or disposable income, that they will happily pay 300 quid for a £50 book, unfortunately. There we go, that's the right placement. If I'd have left it where it was, it would have sounded like I was saying it's unfortunate that some people have got disposable income that allows them to do that. That's not what I mean. It would be fantastic if Games Workshop found a way to just deal with it. I don't know, maybe having like the robot capture thing, prove you're a human, not at the start of the queue, but when you come to pay for the book, maybe that might do it. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this field, but it feels like what they're doing right now clearly doesn't work. And the thing is, they're not going to stop doing limited editions, right? They're not going to stop doing the whole FOMO thing. They're going to keep doing big shiny boxes full of stuff that you will be able to buy individually a month or two later, because that discount, it draws people in. People who are excited about the army want it early. They want people to get hold of that early for a cost, for a price. Although that price does tend to be less than buying the stuff individually. It's again that thing of that whole fear of missing out thing. It's, well, I could get all of these after the fact, but I would have to pay more. Whereas if I got this box right now, then I would get it for less, and that's better. Which is true. It is absolutely true. I'm not trying to suggest that buying those boxes is a bad financial decision if you are wanting to collect that army or really like the content of that box. But it's something that Games Workshop has got very good at. We see these new army boxes very, very frequently now. And the more frequently they appear, the more interested people become, because the more chance of something containing something they'd like is going to be on the way, which also means that it generates more excitement, more hype. It also gets more attention externally, which is why these products are getting scalped more and more as we go on. Do Games Workshop need to just stop doing that? Well, maybe. Quite possibly. Maybe only thing that would change any of this is just going to made to order for basically any of these sort of limited edition, limited time products. Maybe that is the only way that they could actively avoid the scalping issue. But is Games Workshop going to do that when made to order quite often will be disruptive to their regular production capabilities? It seems unlikely. So what is there actually left? Well, at this point, I've no idea. I really thought that maybe they would do something a little bit different, and that it wouldn't be quite the wash that it has been with trying to sell these books a second time. But that hasn't happened, and it's proved that, if anything, this is not something that is going to be let go of. It's not something where Games Workshop has fought back and the response has been, okay, well, we can't mess with it now. There's no point going after GW stuff now because they're going to shut it down. Instead, it's just happened again the same way, which either means that Games Workshop need to do a very, very good job of fighting back and need to constantly be on their toes and, be on their guard and just getting rid of tons of orders as they come in because they know that they have been placed by scalpers, or they need to find a way of releasing this stuff that still retains the limited quantity, still retains the limited edition FOMO style marketing that they like to do, without actually doing it in such a way that it's an attractive proposition for scalpers, which is kind of a difficult balance to hold. This kind of feels like Games Workshop's mess to fix, but Games Workshop, I don't know that they would actually just do made to order for 3 days, made to order for 2 days. You want the End of the Death Volume 3 Special Edition? Well, you have 48 hours to place that order, and then once it's gone, it's gone. Would scalpers still place a bunch of orders and then sell them on after that? I don't know that they would, but then again, there will always be people who miss those sort of windows for this kind of thing, who might end up wanting to spend that extra money after the fact anyway. Do they want to do things like special edition boxes for new armies, like the Deathwing box, like the upcoming Kroot box? They probably don't want to, no. Is that the only way to avoid them being snatched by scalpers? Possibly. Would it cut down it a lot? Most likely, yes. But it's whether Games Workshop would ever consider moving to that model, because let's face it, at the end of the day, this stuff's selling out. It sells out immediately. They're not having a problem shifting stock. They're just having a problem with the image of the stock being shifted because the customers are not happy that they are not being able to get hold of that stock for the correct price. It's not a particularly easy problem to sort out now, is it? But it's going to be super interesting to see what Games Workshop actually does about it, if anything. I mean, from a corporate point of view, I'd imagine the fact that it's selling out immediately, whatever. I mean, the sale's been made. They're not holding this stuff in storage. That's fine. Great. We've shifted the stock. Off we go. But the actual people that create this stuff don't necessarily want it going to scalpers. And the sort of marketing / PR side of things for Games Workshop, I'd imagine, could probably do without a constant influx of complaints about how their stock is going to the wrong people. It's not great. The only thing we could really do is stop buying from scalpers. But unfortunately, as we've already talked about in this video itself, that's not necessarily a solution either, because while you have the people who have that extra disposable income, the scalpers are going to be in business one way or another. Kind of unsatisfying end to that little saga, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe all of that stock will get held back again, all the orders will be cancelled, and we'll be up for round 3. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, but it'd be interesting if it did, and I suppose if they made some changes next time, might work. Maybe? Probably not.